format set up? Does it give you, okay, good, it gives you notes. That's the thing I was interested. I didn't know if I was going to have to do that on my pad or not. All right.
Okay, super. Okay, good morning everybody. You're all very welcome to the first tutorial from Study Committee B3. For anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Hugh Cunningham, and I'll be presenting the tutorial this morning. A little bit of background: I am from Ireland, and I'm currently the manager of substation design standards in ESB, the Irish utility. I've 24 years experience in substation engineering, and I've been involved in SEGRA for the past, the guts of the past 15 years. You're all very welcome. This is a slightly different topic, I think, to the normal technical topics of the conference, but one that's of real interest, I think, to a lot of people, particularly the way our industry is evolving at the minute and the challenges that we have getting people on board, getting engineers upskilled, meeting the demands of the capital investment programs that we have for new assets and maintaining our existing assets. So lots of challenges in this space, which is why B358 was formed, and we produced the technical brochure 898 earlier this year. So this is the first outing of this tutorial, and it's new material, so we'd welcome any feedback. The convener of this working group was Mr. Okira Okada-san, who's joined us here today too. So any difficult questions I'll pass on to Akira. So we'll get started. You really know you're at an engineering conference when there's a calculator at the podium. We won't be needing that today. Okay, so the agenda for this tutorial is we'll talk very briefly about the challenges facing our industry and why we need to look at this topic. We'll talk about what the goals of the working group were, what we set out to achieve and what we produced at the end of the day, with a lot of input from a lot of stakeholders getting us there. We issued a survey, which we had significant response from Australia and other countries in this area. So we'll go through that a little bit. The tutorial is only going to give you a flavour of the content of the technical brochure, so we're going to encourage people to download it from eSegra and to have a look. The focus is young engineers, and we got young engineers involved. The Next Generation Network had significant involvement in this brochure, and potentially, in my view, the most important aspect of it was their feedback as into what works from their perspective and what we need to do to facilitate younger engineers getting the knowledge they need as quickly as possible in our industry. We'll talk a bit about people, processes and technology and how they need to work together for an effective knowledge management world. And then we'll get to conclusions at the end of the day. It's a broad topic, and there's lots of different views and lots of different perspectives. So we would really welcome at the end of this, we'll try and keep the slides to an hour-ish. So we hope to have plenty of time for discussion after it. And we would really love to hear it if people have suggestions, things that worked well for your organizations in terms of sharing knowledge and getting engineers informed quickly. So success stories or challenges or questions. We hope to have a reasonable amount of time for a discussion at the end of all of this. I'm happy to take questions anytime, so feel free to interrupt if something's not quite clear, and we'll endeavour to clarify it. So what we hope you're going to take away from this tutorial is maybe greater awareness of the problem, or at least a moment to think a bit about the problem and how it translates to your organizations. We're all very busy people. We've all got hectic day jobs and work programs to deliver. So the next hour is an opportunity to kind of take a step back and think in a kind of broader sense on how our organizations are set up. Are we sharing knowledge effectively? Are we building time in to share knowledge with the younger people that are joining our organizations, and take those kind of questions. As I said before, we'll talk a bit about people, processes and technology and how they need to work together effectively to produce an efficient knowledge economy in your organizations. Ultimately, we want you to download brochure 898. We were quite proud of the document that's been produced and the content that's in it, and we feel it certainly adds value. And it adds value across the spectrum. We're obviously, this is Study Committee B3 and we're focused on substations, but the ideas that are in this brochure and the suggestions have much broader application across all engineering disciplines in our industry, and there are definitely bits that we hope you'll take out of this tutorial, and we hope that you would take out of the brochure that can be applied much more broadly than just to substation engineering. And I suppose this is about facilitating you to develop a plan that works for your organization, be it utility, consultant, manufacturer, or other engineering entity. And again, the participation in the discussion about substation knowledge transfer. So we want this to be an open conversation between us. So we welcome all opinions. Okay, so a little bit of background. We all know what a substation is, or at least I hope we do. So I won't dwell on that too much. They're critical pieces of infrastructure for any transmission system. They are designed to last, and the items we put in them are designed to last, we hope, at least in most cases. So 40 to 50 year lifetimes, and that presents challenges then for sharing the knowledge that was there as these installations were designed through their life cycle. So things to be thinking about. They must deploy both legacy and rapidly evolving new technologies over their life cycles. So they aren't static pieces of infrastructure. Substations evolve. The core of the substation might stay the same, but individual assets get replaced. Control and protection systems change and are updated. New technologies are introduced. It's a real hub of evolving engineering in our substations, and it needs to be managed, and the knowledge around managing that needs careful management as well. And they're obviously critical, so we need to look after them. So what's the challenge, or at least one of the challenges in this space at the minute? Substation engineering knowledge is quite specialized. We don't have a load of substation engineers that we can pluck from universities that are ready to go and ready to be productive out of the gate, or ready to be as productive as we'd like them to be out of the gate. We need to look at all of the life cycle of a substation, from planning to design, procurement to construction, operation and maintenance, and finally to replacement. So that there's knowledge and engineering needed for all of those activities at all stages of the substation life cycle. The difficulty, or at least one of the difficulties that we find ourselves in at the minute, is that we have a significant population of our substation engineering community that are kind of approaching retirement, or have retired in a lot of cases. reducing the level of specialized knowledge in our organizations. Over the years, organizations have downsized and outsourced, again reducing the level of in-house experience that a lot of organizations have, which is a big challenge. And competition. The power industry market has changed from a people perspective. There's much more competition now for engineering graduates, and trying to attract them into utilities and into power engineering is difficult. I know our own example in Ireland that at present we would have kind of prided ourselves in having quite a good graduate recruitment program and a good offering for graduates, but we're finding it very difficult at the minute to recruit the number of graduates that we need relative to the task that we have ahead of us in terms of the investment needed for decarbonisation and the number of substation projects that we have ongoing and coming on the books at the minute. So it's a real challenge for us and a concern. So the need to transfer knowledge and experience, it's not new. We've certainly been doing it for a long time. But what is different, I think, is the scale at the minute and the amount of transformation in our industry at the minute, and the bodies that we need to deliver that. Even in this conference's keynote, that was mentioned as well. So some bullet points around that. Universities' power engineering programs are not as prevalent today as perhaps they were. That there seems to be more attractive propositions for graduates, or at least they perceive them to be more attractive. So I think there's a marketing job that needs to be done there to promote this industry as a good industry for graduates to join, and one that has a good and fulfilling future. Traditionally, we relied on classroom training and job rotation programs. While they can be effective, they may not provide the timely results necessary to support the rapid pace of retirement. Beyond training new hires, even senior engineers need to be educated in new state-of-the-art technologies. So as well as people, as graduates, we need to think of our existing workforce as well, and how we ensure that they are kept up to speed with things and how they're developing. Today, a structured approach is required, one that addresses people, processes, and technology involved. I suppose like the background to this is to be a successful business, we need to mind this space. Like effective knowledge transfer produces the technical expertise critical for a company's operational success. So if we don't have the people with the skills and the competencies there, we're leaving ourselves very exposed as a business to issues and risks. And like the company's financial and corporate reputation can be at stake as well. Unfortunately, mistakes and errors in substation projects can have significant consequences for connection of energy resources, etc., etc. So it's important that we have the right people with the right knowledge. It is a continuation of success for a company that is dependent on knowledge, continuity, and growth, which is equally vital. Okay, this is a quote from Peter Drucker, who was a guru on modern management theory, and he says that every enterprise is a learning and teaching institute. Training and development must be built in at all levels, training and development that never stops. So we need to look at this as a continual process, and we need to ensure that we're continually developing our people. So to that end, the second part of the quote, we now accept the fact that learning is a lifelong process of keeping abreast of change, and the most pressing task is to teach people how to learn. Okay, so when we kind of first thought of this challenge, isn't it, how are we going to approach it? How are we going to get input into the technical brochure, and who do we need to talk to? We realised quite quickly that we needed to reach out to the broader community and start capturing the lessons learned from individuals. So we issued a survey on SurveyMonkey, which we got quite a lot of responses, a significant number of responses from Australia, which is great. We had a workshop at the Paris session in 2022 as well, which I think a number of people in the room here attended, and we used that to capture information. One of the most important things, and I think I mentioned it at the start, is we got the young engineers involved, and we got the Next Generation Network heavily involved in this, and they were a really important input into the technical brochure and what ultimately ended up down on paper as into, okay, what works for them, what works best, what doesn't work, what we need to think about and what we need to look at. So that was a key input for us, and as part of that they had some workshops. The survey, so we issued a SurveyMonkey survey, as I said, with quite a few responses, so 84 responses from 16 countries. And the feedback was broadly similar. The challenges facing companies and utilities in Australia, Europe, America, Asia are similar. So we're all facing similar challenges. So we're not in a solo run here. The industry as a whole is facing similar challenges, so we need to be thinking of it together. We asked people, so over the next 10 years, what is your company's approximated anticipated percentage of attrition of experienced staff within substation engineering due to retirement? And I suppose the worrying response that came back there, in the dotted lines you'll see the blue is between 20 and 30%, the green is 30 to 50, and 7% there, the dark blue is more than 50%. So between blue, green and dark blue, you have 34% of our respondents indicated that they were expecting an attrition rate of greater than 20% of their engineering workforce over the next 10 years. So that's significant. And that's in the context of people. If you take that in the context of years' experience going out of those organizations, so you're compounding that with the need to recruit. So you're bringing in kind of younger engineers to fill some of those spots. So the amount of man years that are leaving those organizations and the amount of experience and knowledge that's potentially going with those man years is extensive. So that's why we need to start thinking about it and putting plans in place and ensuring that those people retiring, that we're doing our best to shift the knowledge that they have onto the people that are coming behind them, to ensure there's no gaps there. So the aspect of that, we also asked how many are you expecting to leave due to movement to either other departments in your own organizations or companies. And sorry, you go back. There's no going back. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the response rate in that wasn't quite as bad as the retirees, but again, looking at the light blue, green, and dark blue, you're talking about they're expecting 23 odd percent potentially to move of their substation engineering department to move to either other departments in their own organisation or to external companies. So things are changing. When I started my career 24 odd years ago, the substation engineering department was well staffed. There was lots of experienced people there that had been there for years, that had built up their career in substation engineering and had basically stayed there for the duration of their career. That isn't happening anymore. If you look in the substation engineering department at the minute, it's much more junior engineers that have a number of years experience, and then they tend to move around the organisation a little bit. So a handful stay, but there's much more mobilisation now than there was beforehand, and I think that's reflective of the industry in other locations as well, which again makes it a challenge to embed knowledge of substation engineering. So another question that we asked was, what are you doing about it, basically, or are you doing anything about it at the minute? And in fairness, a lot of organisations are. So the blue there, 43% of those responded, are planning stuff and have taken some action, and the green, the 10%, have actions completed, and that they've gotten results from that, which is great to see. But then there's another 40 odd percent in the yellow and grey and red there that are thinking about it and know that there's an issue there, but still have to crystallise and mobilise and implement something to close those gaps. So this brochure, I would hope, would help some of those companies have some ideas on how to tackle that or how to proceed. Okay, as I said, the other input was from the Paris workshop. So we had a workshop at the end of the Paris session in 2022, which was really well attended, even given that it was a Friday. And we got some useful input from the industry at that. As I mentioned earlier on, one of the really important inputs into this brochure is from the younger engineers and from the Next Generation Network. So we mobilised, or we asked them nicely, and they mobilised a task force, a young engineering task force, and they had some workshops. They done a literature review, and they had a number of meetings, and they came up with content to support this brochure and to feed into this work. So it's really important for us to listen to what they said. And again, the Next Generation Network from Australia was fairly heavily involved in that, as well as the UK, the USA, and some other jurisdictions. And this is one of the interesting things that has come out of that. So they had a look at various activities that they gained knowledge from, and they tried to assess them in terms of effectiveness. So they assessed them in terms of the effectiveness of the knowledge transfer, how much they got from it, and they assessed it in the effectiveness for how motivating it was. So the top right-hand corner here is very effective and highly motivated. So we can see here on-the-job training, mentoring, work shadowing, these type of things all scored really highly, and they felt that these were really where they gained a lot from. And at the other extreme, the ineffective and not motivating were things like reading standards, textbooks, equipment manuals, to a lesser extent in-house documentation. So I don't know where secret technical brochures fit into that, but maybe those of us that are involved in writing standards need to think a little bit about how we present our material. But jokes aside, we need to kind of focus on the things that work and the things that work quickly. So if people are learning much better and much quicker with things like work shadowing, on-job training, mentoring, then that merits us looking at it in more detail. Now, I'm not saying that the other things, you can ignore them. You certainly can't. We need to have documentation and stuff in place. We obviously need to have our standards, and they're important. But how the information that's in those documentations and standards gets shared and gets absorbed by younger engineers, we need to think about that. And we need to not do the simple thing and say, okay, here's a list of standards, go off and read them and come back to me if you have any questions, as a fairly poor way of sharing knowledge. So those are important inputs and important things that we need to think about. So based on the work experience program for new graduate engineers should use methods that will be effective with how millennial and Generation Z engineers like to acquire knowledge. There was a focus on one-on-one and face-to-face kind of learnings there, although I will mention that it's not on the previous slide, but another item that was kind of nearly up in the top right-hand quadrant was kind of webinars and virtual face-to-face knowledge sharing. So there is a place for that. In person is better, but if you can't do in person, virtual face-to-face is useful too. So embrace one-to-one learning methods like mentoring, and rely on the technology. So if the technology is there for video conferencing now, the one thing that COVID I think left us with was proficiency for using video conferencing and video phone calls and those kind of things. And use technology, so invest in the systems. So if you can, centralize your knowledge resources, so centralize your information systems into something that's searchable, that's findable, that people can access via their phone or via their tablet if they're not in the office. These kind of things to make it as easy as possible for people to share information. Okay, going a little bit more into the theory of it. So there's three types of knowledge kind of identified. So explicit, implicit, and tacit. So explicit knowledge is things that are in textbooks that you learn in school. Implicit is the application of some of those into things that you do. So you're taking those things and you're applying them fairly simply. And then tacit is the next level where you're much more attuned to what it means and what that information is and how to use that information. You've taken it on board and you know kind of without thinking, you know how to use it. So maybe a couple of examples on what that means. So explicit would be, say, a document that says the face-to-face clearance for a 220 kV in your substation is 2.3 meters. The implicit is using that 2.3 meters when you're designing your substation and you're producing drawings and specifications and etc. Taking that to a tacit level is when you have kind of absorbed that, you understand fully why it is 2.3 meters. You know that it's because of the insulation levels of your system. You know that it's to ensure that you don't get flashovers. You know that it's relative to the lightning impulse level and the switching impulse level of your installation. And you know you're a person that can go and have a look at a drawing and immediately kind of see, okay, hold on a minute, there's something wrong here. You look at it again and then you say, okay, yeah, there's not enough clearance on the 220 kV transformer. Likewise, you could go to site and have a look at an installation and say, hold on a minute, there's something wrong here. And you look at it a bit more carefully and you say, oh yeah, there's a phase-to-phase clearance or phase-to-earth clearance between the OR phase and the pipe from the conservator and the transformer or something like that. It's you've done it, you've repeated it, you've kind of absorbed the knowledge, and it's now become second nature. And that's the kind of the tacit knowledge that we want people to be able to achieve, and that level of competence and confidence and being able to apply knowledge without thinking too much. Likewise, another example of that non-engineering is learning a second language. So it's when you've, say, learnt Japanese, you've had to embrace yourself in the culture, you've had to practice it, you've had to repeat it, and eventually it becomes second nature and you don't have to think and you understand. So that's the level of knowledge, and that's what we're trying to achieve. This model is around that, and this model was developed by a Japanese author and professor, Ikujiro Nonaka, and it's called the Seki model, and it's on how to create knowledge. So he talks about socialization, externalization, combination, and internalization as a continuous circle. So socialization is when we're sharing tacit knowledge peer-to-peer, so we're telling stories, we're learning from others. Externalization is the difficult bit. That's where we try and codify that information. So we try and write it down. It's not easy to write down tacit knowledge, but we try and codify it. We write it down in words and diagrams, and try and get it as best we can captured. And combination is when we've done that, then we look at it and say, okay, how do we improve on it? Can we change it? Can we innovate? Can we do something better? Can we do something different? And we do that, and then we internalize that. So once we have the innovations, the changes in place, we practice it, we do it, we implement it, and that cycle improves our knowledge repository, and that's the principle behind it. Types of substation knowledge transfer. Kira, did you want to have a few comments on this? Can we get a mic? So Akira, for those that weren't here at the start, was the convener of working group B358 on this topic.
Thank you. From early morning. Just give me a breaking time. Just take a rest. Too early for coffee break, but anyhow. This slide has been prepared in 3 years before, when I was preparing term of reference of this working group. So just not only the knowledge transfer in general, come back to your really daily job. There is so many styles of the knowledge we should transfer to our people, younger people, not only young people. Like first one, upper side, first generation, second and third generation. Then in a project from the project kickoff, engineering stage, construction, and the operation. That left side is, I am a manufacturer. Manufacturer is a very small relation with the customer, only those line. But for the customer side, lot of the things as working as a team. Overhead line and the substation, the interface, and also during a maintenance of the transformer, 3 years before the record and the knowledge, how we correctly can transfer to the 3 years later. Then also interface with the distribution side. That was image during prepare the term of reference, TOR. We should do something. Otherwise, people decreasing in the company itself, but also facilities are aging. So that was the first point to come back to this working group. But we understood the basic issue is from the man to man, how we can transfer the knowledge. Then some of that management list up, and there is so many knowledge we should, as a rule, as a company level, not only the keep as an individual. Then after that rule or standardized, maybe in the near future, it can be a contribute as a digital transformation of our work method. So not only the transfer, how style, where we should storage this knowledge is also important issue. So please today, 898 technical brochure is just only knowledge cooking book. You are coming from a separate company. So it depends upon the company's policy and the management. But before you do that kind of the knowledge transfer system, please use our brochure, your own knowledge cooking book. Sorry, too much seriously told me. Is there anybody, some volunteer to share your experience of the knowledge transfer? Egat, is a friend of mine, Egat in Thailand here? No, they escape. No? Really? Yeah, okay, I introduce EGAT cases. I working for the 10 years in EGAT, and I surprised. They are always a committee system. Then even a basic layout, okay, just a moment, we must list up the member of the committee. Then top is the deputy governor. But until the new freshman, they organize around 10 number of the staff committee. About the knowledge transfer, if we have a room to select those kind of the people, yeah, it's good things, good chance to showing the senior people job to the younger people. I promised yesterday to shake a hand. Egat will introduce here. Okay, I just back to you.
Okay, no, you can leave it in there. Okay, thanks for that, Akira. Okay, identifying at-risk knowledge. This is just a very brief slide on prioritization. So one of the things that can happen, you do a knowledge audit, you try to identify the gaps and you discover that you have quite a lot of gaps, so then you need to prioritize. So how to prioritize is fairly straightforward. So you need to look at it in terms of how important it is to the organization, the availability of resources to close it, and how frequently you're going to need it, and that ultimately gives you a method to determine how important a gap is to close. I mentioned at the start that we talk a bit in the brochure about people, processes and technology, and the need for those to all work in harmony for an efficient knowledge economy. So knowledge is about the people, and we need to keep that in mind at all times, but we need to use technology that's available and processes to support how we get that information to the people and have the information at hand so that they can internalize it and turn it into productive knowledge. So nothing happens without people. They are the engine that drives planning, design, maintenance, operation, and continuous development of substations. So the object is to try and get our people knowledgeable as quickly as reasonably possible. Like, it takes time. There's no magic switch that we can flick that sometime day one somebody becomes a competent substation engineer. It takes a little bit of time, but it's about trying to reduce the amount of time that takes and to maximize the efficiency in that process. We need to think about our existing people as well as new people, so we can get a bit blinkered and focused on graduates and training graduates and developing graduates. We have an existing workforce that we need to think about, and we need to ensure that we're keeping them up to speed and giving them opportunities to learn as well relative to the organisation's needs. We need to look at the non-technical as well as the technical, depending on needs, but teaching people how to use the things and how to learn, for want of a better term, is part of it, and giving people soft skills that enable them to perform better. Training is obviously an important part of it. Training via in-class seminars, online webinars, substation field trips for training. Again, one of the strong outputs from the NGN feedback was more time on site, more time at assets, more time with their hands on the equipment, seeing what it does, seeing how it works. All of these things are worth investing in and ensuring that they get those exposures. Just on training via the in-class seminar, I have a slide at the end that I'm going to touch on. We have a project and we've created content for a Seagrace substation training course. So I'll touch on that towards the end of my presentation here. Mentoring came out really strongly as a really positive for people that have experienced it. So mentoring programs have been positive both for the mentees and the mentors. The mentors get stuff out of it as well as the mentees. So if you don't have mentoring kind of programs in your organization, have a look at the brochure and have a talk to your senior management. That it's clearly shown that the feedback is very strong, that mentoring schemes are very positive and produce positive results in terms of developing people. And I think Seagrace Australia here has quite a good mentoring program as well. So mentoring is a professional relationship in which experienced, more knowledgeable person assists a less experienced person in developing skills and knowledge that will enhance their professional and personal growth. A great way to help ensure that substation knowledge experience can be successfully transferred to new hires and less experienced staff. Successful mentoring requires specific skills, effort, structure, deposition, desire, and commitment from both participants to make it work. But the benefits are greater career success, possible promotions, pay rises, increased opportunities, and higher level of possible employee engagement, retention, and knowledge sharing. So, really positive. If you don't have a mentoring scheme, definitely worth considering. okay, once you do something, you should measure how effective it is, and you should change it if it's not working, or tweak it to make it more effective if you can. And this is just Dr. Donald Kirkpatrick's evaluation model is just a 4-level evaluation model of training, and it's something that's worth considering for training courses. Level 1 reaction is measured how learners have reacted to the training and their perception of its relevance and usefulness. So that's normally a questionnaire at the end of it, and there's an example of one there. Learning is a measure of what the trainees have learned during it. Behaviour is a measure of the degree to which they've applied it, and results is the measure of the overall has it delivered the overall objective of improving what the individual in question. And I think we're probably good. Well, I know in our organisation we're good at the first level there, and that we do a questionnaire at the end of the training. I don't know if we're as good at the other levels there and fully kind of looking at it. And do we go back to it in a month's time and say, okay, has that person learned what we thought we were going to learn from that particular training endeavour, and have they been able to apply it or not? But if you want best practice, that's what you should be doing. Looking at processes. So this is kind of a framework on how to organise yourselves in terms of knowledge management, and you need to look at the company values, and then policy, strategy, objectives, processes, all of that feeding into knowledge management systems, knowledge management endeavours, having alignment really from the top to the bottom on what the organisation needs and what the organisation wants to get out of a knowledge management program. So there's quite a lot in that, and we go into a fair amount more detail on that in the technical brochure. So I'd encourage people to have a look at the brochure if you want more information about that. Looking at it more focused, it's so to set up a knowledge management project in an organisation, you need to kind of figure out what the goals and objectives are. You need to prepare the organisation at all levels. So you need to have buy-in from senior management and from people on the ground that we're doing this to improve our knowledge sharing culture in the organisation, to facilitate people learning better, and we're doing this, and these are the benefits that we're going to get out of it at the end of the day. Then you need to get teams together of people with the knowledge and people without the knowledge, and you need to do a knowledge audit and figure out where the gaps are, or where the risks are, or what is the at-risk knowledge. So what's the knowledge that you haven't captured, that you don't have several people that have that knowledge that are ready to fill in, that's potentially going to leave due to retirement or due to a particular staff member moving to another organisation. So you need to identify those kind of things in the knowledge audit and then prioritise them, as I mentioned in the earlier slide, and put plans in place to close those gaps and to implement it. You need to look at IT and see, okay, what technologies are there? Do we have a knowledge management system that's fit for purpose at the minute? Should we kind of develop one? Can we consolidate our information? So a lot of organizations, I know my own is no exception, in that over the years we have various repositories for information. We have a document management system, we have SharePoint sites, we have files, we have scanned documents, we have libraries, but they're all disconnected. So there's no one-stop shop that somebody can go to and search for a particular piece of information. So it's worth considering that, and there are definitely solutions out there that provide much slicker and quicker and better access to information, and that needs to feed into it. And then we need to start tracking it, so you need to start measuring it, where are the gaps, how are you closing them, when are you closing them, what's happening in terms of skills and competencies. Looking at employees, so employee competency is nearly always a goal. So the process to develop those competencies. So define what the scope is, define what the gap is, what you want to achieve, and this can be done in a development plan or something like that there with a particular employee. Identify the roles and responsibilities and resources that are needed to make it happen. Identify how you're going to happen, what the learning is, record it, and then at the end of the day do the review and assessment. So has that person developed that competency the way we wanted them to develop it? Are there ways we can improve it? Do we need to do more in that space? And are there lessons learned for others that we can take on board? Use of technology, again, this came through from the input from the Next Generation Network, that there are technologies out there that can help when maybe as a second best alternative to going to the asset and spending time on site. Use technologies, use virtual reality, use 3D engineering tools, and use them for training as well as design. So again, it's about using the digital tools that are out there to be better at what we do. So this is just an example of a 2D drawing being brought to life with a 3D. And I suppose for somebody new coming into the organization, it's much easier for them to see and appreciate a 3D model versus a 2D board drawing of an old substation. So these kind of things help people gain understanding and gain familiarity and have a better perception for what's happening. Okay, part of it, part of the brochure is a number of case studies. So I'll talk very briefly about a couple of them. The first one is onboarding graduates at a European utility. So that particular case study is from Ireland. It's ESB. It's our graduate program. One that we're quite proud of, and we've put a lot of effort into our graduate program over the years, and it up until recently it's been quite successful. So we've been able to attract talented graduates into our organization, and it's focused on developing those graduates. We have a defined program. There's rotations in place for the first number of years that they rotate to different departments, different engineering departments, and learn a bit about each of them. And then at the end of the rotations, they can specialize in whatever area that they like, hopefully substation engineering. So that program has been quite successful until recently, but as I said, I think earlier on, that we're having challenges at the moment, that the market out there for graduates is extremely competitive. And while our program was successful a number of years ago, it's been challenged, particularly this year, to get graduates. Our graduate numbers are well down this year on where we'd like them to be and where they need to be relative to the capital investment program that we have for the next number of years, and the amount of work that we've coming down the tracks for basically infrastructure needed to decarbonise the electricity system in Ireland. So there's challenges there, and we're looking at that and trying to improve on it. Yeah, there are some good ideas in that case study about what has worked for us previously, and it is still worth looking at it. The 70%, 20%, 10% model there is kind of how we feel people learn most. So the 70% is learning through work experience, through time on site, through dealing with others in your day-to-day job, and then to a much lesser extent, it's through structured programs and learning through others. That model shifts a little bit depending on if somebody is a graduate or somebody is semi-experienced coming into the organisation. Case study 2 is another one, and this is lessons learned during the transfer of knowledge when two companies have merged. So this is an example of a merger of two companies with different cultures and different goals, and some of the challenges that presented, and the different approaches to quality control, which this study goes into in a little bit more detail. But culture is important, and there was a quote, I think it was from Peter Drucker, that culture eats strategy for breakfast every day. So the culture is very difficult to change in an organisation, and I think the recommendation is to work with the culture that you have and try and shape things around it. But there's a case study on that in the TB in more detail. And eventually they developed a unified approach at the end of the day. The third case study is from a substation engineering consultancy in the US, where they had a huge increase in work, and they needed to increase the resourcing of their engineering department by 5, which is a huge increase. And what they figured that traditional mentoring techniques couldn't support that level of growth, so they had to do an awful lot more recruitment, advanced training programs, online reference manuals, digitized stuff. One of the successes that they had in that is that they developed a really close relationship with the universities in the area that we're in, and brought on a significant number of interns into their organizations, and they were able to carry those interns through, and they retained a lot of those interns when it came to graduates at the end of the day. So that worked out really well for that particular consultancy. Case study 4 is focusing on SIGRE. So we pride ourselves as a knowledge sharing entity, and participation in SIGRE is of value to a lot of people. This case study kind of elaborates a bit on this, and it discusses the journey that a number of SIGRE Next Generation Network individuals had, and what they had gained from participating from participation in study committees, in working groups. So again, if you're having to make cases to senior management for younger engineers to be involved in SIGRE, there are some good case studies in that will support that, and you can refer to it and say, look, this has produced value, this is what other companies have done, and it has resulted in benefits both to the individual and to the organisation that was supporting them and supporting their involvement in SIGRE activities. I won't dwell too much on this. This is just from the workshop session in Paris. An example of the substation training program, or a substation training program. Just to mention, my other role one of my other roles in SIGRE is I'm the project manager for the substation training course. So this is something that SIGRE has never done before. So we have developed with some very experienced individuals a comprehensive training course, taking some of the stuff that was in the Substation Green Book and supplementing that with other information. We have produced a fairly extensive training course with a significant number of modules looking at all aspects of substation engineering. So there's an introduction, there's 2 modules on planning, there's 2 modules on AIS design, there's 2 modules on GIS design, there's 1 module on substation components, there's 2 modules on secondary systems, there's 2 modules on construction and commissioning, there's 2 modules on asset management, there's 2 modules on special purpose substations, there's 1 module on cables and GIL, and there's 1 module on future trends in substations. So there are hundreds and hundreds of slides that have been put together for those, so it's a really detailed course. Where we are at the minute with it is that we're looking to get trainers on board. The guys that developed the course aren't intending to trot around the world delivering it, so we're looking at getting trainers in the various locations around the world that are able to deliver some of these modules and to try and program the delivery of those modules as something new. So that's something new and exciting, and the brainchild of Terry Craig, who was our previous chairman in Study Committee B3. Okay, to conclude, key takeaways. The challenges noted in the introduction confirm a knowledge transfer crisis that can't be ignored. So we need people, and we need to get people skilled up and equipped quickly. This was only a flavour of what's in the brochure, so again, encouraging people to have a look at the brochure for a little bit more detail on all of these things. It doesn't provide a universal module. It's not. This is the path. Go to this, and you'll solve all of your knowledge management needs in substation engineering. It's designed to give you ideas to take back to your own organisation, so you can look at your own organisation and say, okay, which of these can be adapted? Which of these are applicable? Some of these things are suggested in this brochure. Will they work for us, or will they not? Or do we have other things that we're doing? However, the need for effective substation knowledge transfer program and its execution cannot be denied. Okay, so we recommend people download and have a look at the brochure for more detail, or please feel free to come and talk to us if you want more information on it. And we'd be happy to take any questions or any thoughts or ideas that people have. Thank you.
John Randolph with LS Power in California. Hugh, I was just curious, you emphasize the importance of, the younger generations and using some of the more recent methods and technologies. And so I was curious if your team looked into things like augmented reality or virtual reality type of approaches.
Yes, that there is a bit on that on the technical brochure. That there, and I think it came from a contribution from the States, that organizations have used augmented reality and models of substations to kind of help in the training and knowledge management. So they've been able to give people headsets and show them what it looks like to go into a substation, to move around a substation, what the live parts are, how they need to maintain clearance from live parts, what the safety issues are, and taking that to the next extent, people have used that to look at constructability. So designing it virtually and then looking at that design virtually and taking it and even getting people like station supervisors and technicians in and showing them what they're proposing to design virtually before it's built, so that they get an opportunity to interact with the installation in a virtual environment before it's built physically, and they can say, okay, yes, that looks good, or no, that doesn't work for me from an operations perspective because I need to apply an earth here and this is going to be in the way of me applying an earth here and it needs to move. So these kind of things, modern technology, virtual reality, 3D substation design, intelligent models all add value and can help kind of instill knowledge or bring knowledge in.
Yeah, when I was young in Japan, all substation engineers competing each other, unique design, unique design, unique design. There is no standardized substation layout. But from 2000, due to the manpower also reduce and efficiency, we start talking in a Sigray. So standardized layout is booming now. But unfortunately, we cannot repeat real construction like when we used to be young. So for the young people, now is a standardized substation concept is here. So why not the 3D? And also including a 4D time frame. We can repeat on the desk for the young engineer, joint discussion from senior to young about the risk of the project, etc. Yes, it is booming now, even 4D. Sorry, is there any people volunteer?
Matt? Yes, am I? Yeah, hi Matt.
Hello. You identified that it should be a priority to identify key information for knowledge transfer straight away. Is there any consideration in the technical brochure as to how to balance that against single person risk, even if it's not necessarily high priority?
I'm not sure is the answer there. I think it comes back to the one slide we had on identifying the priority in it, and part of that was identifying the availability. So if it is dependent on an individual person, then the priority obviously should be increased to